Thanks for the invitation to present some of the work that we are doing within the Inspire network. So Inspire is a network, a partnership, and I'll just take a few minutes to just go over what we've done and just introduce what we have actually presented within the paper. Thank you. So the paper talks about enabling data sharing and utilization for African population health data using Odyssey tools with an OMOP-common data model. And this has appeared in the Frontiers in Public Health in June. And it's just a brief about the work that we are doing and what the innovative approach and contribution to the field has been over the past few, maybe 2 years. So although OMOP was first developed to host clinical data, what we have done within the network with the team is to marry the OMOP-common data model with population health informatics. And this is for 2 use cases. So one use case is within HIV and another one within COVID, the COVID response, COVID-19 data, using COVID-19 data. So in both of its population health use cases, we use a federated model, and this is has been built as a platform, as a service that includes both the OMOP CDM and a set of Odyssey tools or services that it deploys locally at the Sentinel site. So the same goes for new terminology that is needed in population health and surveillance, and for cohort definitions that we have implemented. And Odyssey hosts centrally a phenotype library that we provide within this work. And the good thing about this is Atlas is mostly a point and click Odyssey component that we use for the analytics. And within this, we have developed this, we are part of the group with developing this new component, which is within the Odyssey GIS working group that keys exposure occurrences, that is locality data, looking at including special localities within Odyssey. And our approach to support those innovations has been this doing work through a federated approach whereby we preserve privacy and confidentiality of the data, which was an issue, especially during COVID. So the metadata is shared across the networks, but the data remains at home, thus mitigating this risk of identification of use files and individuals. And then there's the accountability and transparency that comes with it and the feedback loops that provide for this. We also create a condition or conditions for positive impact on addressing issues of gender and intersectionality and their accountability mechanisms. And we also include lived experience experts within the protocol. So the capacity building comes because we have 2 hopes. The first hope is where we migrate data from all sites from their local systems into some standard format. And in the second hope, the ETL is developed centrally, and this moves data into the standard format in OMOP. And it's during this phase or this hope that capacity development is required. So a lot of the capacity development and courses, modules that we have developed, technical capacity to manage large data sets, to use OMOP CDM to develop the analytics components that includes the definitions and also the outputs from this. So the capacity development was initially in-person workshops, but that has shifted during COVID to being more virtual. And within each locality, so this is a representation of what happens within the whole pipeline. So each locality develops the ETL that moves the source data through an ecosystem of using the Odyssey services. And this is one for each stage, one ETL for each staging database. And during the implementation, we use Pentaho data integration that makes use of a human and machine readable implementation guides that captures most of the thinking of within the construction of the ETLs to support this. We also have the integration of place-based attributes, as I mentioned, and this is support for the attributes around climate change, because we know that climate change is the biggest health threat facing humanity, and it has disproportionately affected the most vulnerable communities. And then we also determine the vocabularies for this, and this involves the person level exposure events for the sake of understanding. So this is also demonstrated in that. So here we demonstrate through our Odyssey IDSR network study, which is the IDSR tool has been used for COVID-19. And here our network study has within our network study, several instances of Odyssey are stood up, one at each country site, and one at the coordinating center, which is at the African Population and Health Research Center. So the countries ETL their data into an analysis-ready format called the OMOP-CDM using SQL and Pentaho, and the data stays at home. So within this process, we develop the incidence rate and predictive analysis methods that are shared across sites between the coordinating center and participating countries or institutions. And through this back and forth, the methods are fashioned and validated and can be interoperable across countries, even as these countries have adopted the IDSR tool. They need to meet their own heterogeneity requirements. So in Odyssey, as I mentioned, we have stood up several instances. We've worked with synthetic IDSR data and an Atlas data analysis workbench in the cloud version of Odyssey on AWS. So this is what we've used. We've developed the incidence rate and predictive analysis, defined the cohorts, concept sets, and the support. So within the IDSR, we specify, so within this project, we have support within the World Fair, which is funded by EU to develop a framework that documents a network study using schema.org and JSON LD. So through this framework, the workflows that produce the OMOP instances from the source case report forms through to the analytical outputs are provisioned, and this executes a shared study design on top of the site-specific CDMs, so using local copies of the same data and the analysis software stack. So this we are in the process, we have implemented also using the synthetic data. And the implications really around what we've done so far and the results and challenges that exist. So in the beginning, we realized that most organizations or sites or centers were not willing to share the data. So this federated approach, whereby localities report results and as aggregates, also known as indicators, which support or align with the UN SDG database, are provisioned. We know that one of the greatest challenges for us in especially bringing disparate sources of data within the African context has been all the lack of integration of data systems and interoperability issues. There's also the technical capacity for managing the large data sets, the analytic components, and both analysis of both microdata and the aggregates. And then there are issues to do with the structural, the setup, whereby the internet is still very expensive, it's limited, and connectivity is still low at almost 30%, and there's limited infrastructure in Africa. But there's also the issue with the lack of legal frameworks for data sharing and use of AI tools. So this is work in progress. So thank you. I hope that provides the overview. I would like to acknowledge the team that continue to support this work, and to the Odyssey for giving us this platform to share. Thank you.